Hello guys, Rosalie here, and welcome back to this series which I have now dubbed the RU, aka Rosalie's Universe. Now in my last video on this, I talked about Lady R and some of her backstory, but while we have talked about the villain side, we have to talk about her main rival, the thorn in her side, the human she underestimated not once, but twice. Please welcome to the stage, Haven Nicole Withers, or Haven for short. This is going in depth not only about her early life, but what led up to her interaction with Lady R in the first place, and her time spent after that. This video is long, much longer than Lady R's video, so strap in, and please enjoy this because I put so much effort into it. While Haven isn't mentioned much prior to her story with Lady R, she was essentially a protege of Sticher's, who was also known for being the mentor of Riley, Piper, and Christina, who I've mentioned before. Haven was very adept at fighting, making both uses of long-range mobility and short-range close-ups. That's why she chose as her weapon a kusarigama, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, which is also known as a chain sickle, albeit hers was fashioned in a different way. That not only allowed her to utilize both long and short distances, she also ended up turning it into a makeshift grappling hook, which would end up for some badassery in the future. Sticher was very impressed with her to the point where she decided to train her separately so as to keep it centered around herself, which was a great turnout because Haven ended up becoming even better in one-on-ones than she did when Sticher was training all four of her students. Haven outside the battlefield, however, was not the best student in her class. She got by in her subjects, but she found that classes like English and math were much too boring for her to take seriously. So while she ended up with no serious achievements at her high school, she still managed to pass with good grades and continue her journey both as a fighter and just as a member of the academic community. Haven was 15 at the time when Lady R decided to come to Earth and take it over. It was a normal training day with Sticher when Sticher heard a noise outside that sounded like clanging. At this time, Lady R had taken Piper and Christina under her control, converting them into Metal Hands and Crazed Piper. And once Sticher saw them, she was, confused, rightly so. And despite her better actions, she knew she had to fight them because they were no longer themselves. However, she held back immensely and they were able to beat her back. When all hope seemed lost, however, for Sticher, Haven came swooping in out of nowhere and entered the clash. The fight was going very well for a couple of seconds until Crazed Piper and Blackout managed to subdue Sticher, and Lady R was able to turn her into Blackout. Completely alone and terrified now looking at the thing that used to be her mentor, Haven fled. Looking upon that, nowadays she still thinks of it as a cowardly move and she could have gone fighting even though she would have died. But realistically, her fleeing was the best idea considering not only was she facing two extremely powerful sword fighters, but her mentor, who was also an extremely powerful fighter at the time. Haven then continued to making the resistance, which consisted of 299 other people, all ranging from the ages of 10 to 19. She ended up gaining a lieutenant named Silver Reese, and gaining a best friend in a 12-and-a-half-year-old named Kyrie Silverman. She continued on with this for 2 months, and even though she lost a lot of people, she still continued to keep on fighting because she knew that if they just gave up, Lady R would slaughter them nonetheless. There was no chance they would survive anyways, so why not go out without a fight? Silver and Kyrie ended up falling victim, Silver in the second-to-last battle, which was in his own fight against Metal Hands, and Kyrie being decapitated by Blackout on her final charge to try and stop Lady R. However, Haven, in a one-on-one, with Lady R was able to best her by exploiting her pride and the fact that Lady R could not do hand-to-hand combat. Lady R was able to flee, and Piper, Christina, and Sticher were brought back to life because the void was no longer controlling them. However, the many casualties could not have been brought back, and that left Haven devastated. After that, she began to fall into extreme survivor's guilt, and it really messed her up from the inside to the point where she had to take therapy, and even then, she still had awful dreams about it, leading to depression spirals and constant paranoia that she could never get rid of. From the end of the war all the way up until she was an adult, and after Haven took extensive amounts of trauma therapy, she eventually made some new friends, those being Spencer, V, and Rayleigh, who were some of her friends. Rayleigh and V became two of her apprentices, and Spencer became one of her best friends and eventual love interests. Now, while Haven was still, heavily traumatized and still felt extreme survivor's guilt for all of this stuff, she was able to move on somewhat and continue making connections with her friends, and even Spencer was able to help her figure out who she wanted to be. So eventually, her, Rayleigh, and V split apart, V and Rayleigh deciding to go train on their own, and Haven deciding to settle down with Spencer. They ended up having a kid together at one point, who I haven't come up with the name for, but yeah, they have a kid now. Overall, Haven Nicole Withers had a pretty difficult teenagehood and a pretty hard adulthood, but her childhood was full of friendships and mentorships, and despite all that happened, Haven does admit that without all of this, she wouldn't have become the incredible warrior that she is. And Riley, even the main character, has admitted that Haven is stronger than her, which is very impressive, being stronger than the main character, because it just shows how much Sticher taught Haven. But yeah, that's the end of Haven's video. If you like this type of content, ask me if there are any other types of characters in my stories, like what is my favorite, what's my least favorite, like who can I yap about in my universe. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. If you like this video, make sure to check out my channel, tap the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you can get to see more videos. Check out my Blue Sky for updates for videos that I post, and just random posts in general. Check out my Ko-Fi for art commissions at a decent price and good quality. Check out my Instagram where you can send me fan art for games that I have played or will play in the future, and also fan art of my characters. And check out my Tumblr if you want to see art that I have made over the years. And I'll see you in my next video. Rosalie, out.